So I got this, or we got this on the Reddit, feeling constantly behind the progression curve. Firstly, I'd like to say that I've been enjoying Vault Hunters a lot. I think that Iskall and the developer team have done a tremendous job making this mod pack. Huge props to them. That being said, I can't help but feel constantly behind the progression curve while playing this mod pack. I've had a plan for my playthrough for the last few days, reach level 50, craft the powerful new tools, upgrade the Vault Forge proficiency so I can craft decent armor and wreak havoc in the vaults, all while staying at level 50. It's a great plan in theory, however, it's not possible without cheating through some of the vault settings, which I have been purposely avoiding so far, as I was trying to play the game as the developers intended. These are my gripes with the current progression in the game. Playing the game normally, it's impossible to reach high Vault Forge proficiency to craft gear for your current level. The game doesn't drop enough gear to scrap and upgrade proficiency. This means that at best you'll have an apprentice level of proficiency for crafting gear, which feels like a complete waste of resources and in turn makes the whole crafting mechanic a waste of time and resources. So I'm gonna stop there. We're gonna read the rest here in a little bit. This is from Crystal Drug. This is a very detailed, it's a very constructive criticism. And what Crystal Drug here is talking about is the Vault Forge and how you gain proficiency. A lot of people may miss this part because I don't think it's well described in quests, etc. I think we can definitely do a lot of work there. But basically, the way it works is that you can use vault scrap that you get from gear and you can sacrifice it, or whatever we would call it here. You could add proficiency by putting some vault scrap in here and pressing this button, and this bar goes up. Now, it's not very visible on my level because I'm so far behind, and mostly because level 90 to 100 is a super steep amount of vault scrap you need. But if I go down here just to get a visible mark, if I go down to level 69, nice, and then I go and get some scrap, we should see a little bit of a tick, if you will, in the progression. So put this back to 69 and then put the scrap in here. Now if I click this, I went over that bar there, and so my level now is master. These different levels, when you craft gear, affect a bunch of different things. For example, on lower level, you can see that if I'm a beginner, my durability of my craft is going to be very low. The gear is going to have 0% crafting potential, which means that it's going to be extremely expensive, although not impossible. It's going to be extremely expensive to reroll. And we're going to have a rarity pool of Scrappy Plus, so we can still get an Omega piece, but it's a low chance because it's going to be a Scrappy Plus. We're going to have one repair slot, and we're not going to have any soulbound chance. As we go up in level, so if we go up and look here at Adept, we now have a 40% of crafting potential, which means 40% of the dropped gear. We now craft a common +1. We have a mid-range durability roll. We have 3 repair slots. We have 20% chance for it to be soulbound, and we have 4% chance to get a graded modifier. A graded modifier is a half legendary thing, basically. The further up you get, the better you get, and once you reach the Grand Master, you're actually crafting insane gear. You're rolling from rare plus, so you can only get rare, epic, and omega. You're getting 6 repair slots at maximum. There's a 50-50 of you getting it soulbound, and there's a 10% for a greater modifier, as well as your crafting potential is now 100%, so it's the same as the gear that drops. Now, the complaint here from Crystal Drug was that this is too slow. Even if you scrap, even if you use all of your vault scrap and you just level up like normal on normal settings, you're gonna fall behind on this thing. And that's true. You're gonna fall behind if the goal is, if the intention is that you should always be Grandmaster. Now, while I know that a lot of community members, a lot of you guys, and please feel free to answer this in chat, a lot of you guys are frustrated and agree with Crystal Drug here. A lot of you guys think that this is way too slow. I also think that we need to tune this. I think that we're in a position where it needs to be slightly tuned, specifically before level 90. I don't really care after level 90 because now you're entering the end game or you're entering the high levels. But I do think that we can be more lenient up to level 90. Remember, level 90 to 100 is the same level speed as level 0 to 90. So you're basically doing it all again in terms of time spent. Although it's not really true because you can modify your vaults. Anyway, that's a different story. The problem I am having, though, is that I think that Grandmaster is very good. I think it's very good. I don't think it's super expensive to craft gear, specifically if you like make use of resource cards for your chromatic iron or your chromatic steel or your carbon or whatever. I don't think it's very expensive to craft gear. It's 1 gold piece and 3 alloy. That doesn't change. So if I would craft gear master, Grandmaster here, I'm gonna get very good gear if I would be level 66. Every single time I craft it. And if I get lucky, I get an improved modifier, which is a modifier that I can't achieve by finding the gear. And as you can see, there's going to be soulbound on these. They're going to have 100% crafting potential, which means that, you know, I can spin these as if I found them in the game. So yes, I think that this is slightly off. I think that we need to tune it so that it follows the player a little bit better. I don't think that the goal should be Grandmaster. I think that Grandmaster should be like, if you scrap everything, I think you should be able to stay around Master. This is a very hard calculation to do, by the way, because it all depends so much on how you loot, how good you are at the game. The more you loot, the more gear you're going to get. The more Catalyst runs you do, the more challenge you put yourself in by using... you know, ornate catalyst or whatever, the more challenge you put yourself in, the more gear you're gonna get, right? And so it's very hard to know where is the average player. Is there even an average player? And isn't it fair to think or to say that an average player should be trailing by about 50%, so be in this adept level if you're an average player, or maybe even a little bit below, like maybe... Because otherwise there's no ceiling for like min-maxing, right? The second thing to note though is that you don't need to craft gear in Vault Hunters. You don't need to craft gear. The strength with crafting gear comes from the fact that you can choose the gear piece that you craft. So if I'm already at Grandmaster, now all of a sudden it's going to switch to me saying, I don't really need to look for swords. I don't really find it exciting to find gear because I can just craft such good high level quality gear. Look at this. I get an improved modifier for tank damage just after crafting a couple of swords here. Or not a couple, to be fair. It's like after crafting 7 or 6 swords. And everything you craft can still be scrapped, so you can recycle and get back some of that scrap that you spent crafting it. So I don't think that necessarily the delta of the proficiency is bad. I think it can be tuned. I think it could be a little bit more lenient, a little bit nicer to the player. But crafting your own gear is very strong. And it's not necessarily something you have to do. Take me as an example. I haven't crafted gear in this playthrough at all since like level 60 when we stopped and leveled. It's a fun thing to do. And most importantly, when you hit max level, it's really powerful if you're level 100 and have this maxed out. But for me, to me as a game design, that should be a journey. It should be something that's a journey. I think it takes something like 200,000, 500,000, maybe 1 million vault scrap to get there. I don't even remember. It takes a lot of vault scrap to get there. As I say, if I would have this at Masterful or whatever the highest one is, Grandmaster, I would get very little excitement of finding gear. Now, of course, you can argue that finding gear, you can always find legendary, you can't craft legendary. Yeah, that's by design. You can't craft these legendary ones, but you can get the improved ones, which at the max level is still pretty good rolls. My conclusion is, and in order to answer Crystal Drag, I do think that we can be more lenient, but I think the goal from my side, and I'm comparing it to how completable the game is. The goal from my side is not necessarily that you should be maxed out at every single time. If you can get halfway there, which I believe you can up to level 50, that's good. If you can't, we should tune it a little bit. You should be able to get there. But again, it all depends on how you play the game. If you just play to complete objectives, then you're not really playing to complete this objective. Vault objectives award players who focus on the objective, while Vault Hunters is designed in such a way, and maybe this is a bad fundamental design in Vault Hunters, but it's designed in such a way that you can customize a vault, not focus on the completion, and just run a loot run, and you can get a ton of gear by doing that, even before level 50. Let's continue. A normal difficulty dungeon with a spider boss that hits for half of your health, coupled with a 71 gold fee after death, is just not a good time. You may argue that it's all a skill issue, and to some degree, you would be right. However, keep in mind that the majority of players are inexperienced in this mod pack. They are born to make mistakes and will get severely punished for it. A normal difficulty boss should never kill a player in 2 hits, and the punishment for death should never be the entire economy of the player, period. Yeah, I agree on paper, but again, this becomes really difficult to judge. And I'll explain why. Vault Hunters, unlike other Minecraft mods or unlike other Minecraft games in this sphere, scales. I agree with the sentiment. If you play normal and you go into a normal dungeon, you should not be too shocked by the boss. However, if you're level 50 and your gear is trailing and you're like at level 35 gear, you're losing a lot of defenses. And specifically with spiders, they do a lot of crit damage. So if you're playing a mage build like I am, the lesson learned, or the lesson that you need to learn, is the fact that mages are not great against spiders. You need a tank built to deal with spiders. And is that good? I mean, I think so. I think it's good that mobs do different things and different mobs are dangerous for different playstyles. I think that's great. That's how it usually is in an action RPG game. If you would go into that same spider dungeon and have 100% crit hit resistance, I guarantee you that boss will not two-shot you. Granted, your gear is somewhat up to speed. But see, this is so hard for me to answer because I agree with the fundamental game design criticism that you shouldn't ever get two-shotted if you play normal on a normal difficulty by a normal boss. But it's hard for me to judge based on, like, do you have the gear for that level? Because that's another big factor. If you do you have the crit hit resistance? But even if you have all of these things, or don't have these things, we don't do a good enough job at describing the challenges of Vault Hunters. That I can agree with. You can't know, other than by dying and learning, that spiders are extremely difficult for mage players because they do critical hits. You don't know that. And that's on us. We need to make sure that the players know that. In regards of you losing 71 gold, or any player losing 71 gold, yeah, I mean, it's something that I should consider for Vault Hunters 4. Should the default gameplay mode be casual mode? Maybe. Right now it's normal, which means that you have to buy back your stuff. Should the normal difficulty in Vault Hunters be lowered? This is an interesting question that I think it might, maybe it should. Should it be like equivalent to what easy is now? Yeah, maybe. These are definitely things that we need to polish for update 20 for when we finalize Vault Hunters 3, and definitely things we need to think about for Vault Hunters 4. Because if I'm completely honest, like the difficulty word, normal, hard, easy, it's just arbitrary. What we really should do is we should make a poll, a community poll, and we should ask for the average, like we should analyze what the average player is playing on. If the average player is playing on easy, the easy should be the new normal. I can say one thing about difficulty in video games that I think is really important and often overlooked. There is this sort of internet shame about playing games on lower difficulty. I think that we've all probably run into it. I certainly have run into it. I mean, I do video gaming as a profession, which means that there's a bit of pressure on me from the internet gods, you know, the gamers, quotation, that play a lot of video games. There's a bit of pressure on me to be good at video games. And I can certainly feel like some games have difficulty labels that are incorrect. I understand that it feels frustrating though, and I think my main take away that I need to think about is, first of all, this 71 gold here. Like, of course, we can look into how this scales. 71 gold being the entire economy is, of course, yeah, that's tough, right? So maybe casual needs to be the base mode. Maybe the gold cost needs to be dropped in these levels. Because honestly, when I made those curves, the game was slower. The game is much quicker now, and I might need to reconsider them. This is great feedback for me to polish the game in update 20. Absolutely great feedback. Right, let's continue here. Some vault objectives are impossible to complete looking at you scavenger hunt, and even when you do manage to complete a vault, the loot from the completion crate is most often underwhelming and not nearly enough to keep the player progressing at a required rate. The thing you'll get plenty of is vault experience, which will just make the next vault harder and Vault Forge more useless. Even running vaults with Plunderer's Crystals, which negates the experience gain entirely, bounty crates will still force experience upon you, making it impossible to catch up to the ever more difficult vaults. Okay, fair enough. I think that scavenger hunts are difficult, specifically around level 50. They are definitely a more challenging objective. The way completion crates work is that they focus on things that you don't find elsewhere. One thing that people may miss is that every scavenger completed is 27 gold. So if your entire economy is 71 gold, or if your death cost is 71 gold, that should be weighed against, okay, how much do I get from completing a hard objective versus an easier objective? If I'm not incorrect, Elixir gives you 18 gold, Light Abrasives give you 9 coins. You get 9 gold every time you complete. In theory, you can just run through a Light Abrasive without interacting with any mobs and just collect gold that way. It's kind of boring, but you can. I don't think completion crates are I mean, yeah, okay, I understand why people say that they might be underwhelming, but I think that it depends on what you're looking to get out of it. Completion crates are supposed to be how you complete the game, which is by getting the artifacts, and the only way to get artifacts is from crates. You can get them from black markets, but it's a gamble. And so that's the goal of completion crates, that and giving the player gold. Now maybe that gold number is wrong, maybe it needs to be raised, maybe it needs to be lowered or changed somewhere, but I certainly understand the feeling when popping one of those crates. It doesn't always feel great. There are other things that you can only get in crate, like fruits, which you can get from resource cards and vendors, but reliably you can get it from completion crates. And then of course we have the whole resource card system, right, where you can build your own completion crate. So if I go back into my game here, this is again something that we may need to be better at like selling to the player. But resource cards, which comes in at level 50, mind you, the cards are not available before level 50, allows you to get extra tasks like this one here. 1 ripe mango every 10 tanks I kill, or 1 orange per 7 champions. These are really good cards. Let's look at these, for example. 3 chromatic iron ingots per every 18 chests I loot. This is a really good card to keep your chromatic iron up. So is this. You combine the completion crate with cards, and the completion crates are going to feel pretty big eventually. But I would say to this, I would say completing vaults is something you want to do in order to progress the game. If you want to slow down and halt, you should do loot runs. You should just throw Catalyst on there to wherever you feel comfortable in your challenge. Throw some inscriptions on there in the workbench here, and then focus loot. That's a very big part of how this game is designed. Focus loot. Focus on finding things that you need. If you want to get rich, run a couple of vaults with wealthy Catalysts. With these things here, just have one focus. A good objective, if you want to complete the objective at the same time for that, is the light the braziers. Light the braziers doesn't require any interaction. You just need to click the braziers, basically. It might be that seals needs to be more available early game. That might be a very big thing. And some things are probably a mixture between balance and information. And then the third part comes in, which is important to me. There is definitely skill in Vault Hunters. There is a skill ceiling and a skill step that you can walk in Vault Hunters. All of these things matter a lot to me. I take this like this is my biggest passion in life. I love making it as good as I can. So yeah. Now, Crystal Drug finishes up by saying there's something fundamentally wrong with the design if running level 9 vaults at level 50 feels right and intended. You get enough time to properly explore the vault, acquire a decent amount of gem bags and other chest loot, and don't have to worry about not completing a vault due to the RNG gods. I'm considering changing the vault settings so that at least I can stay at the level I want to be at and get loot crate drops that are not complete garbage. I would be curious to know what you guys think. You're definitely right, Crystal Drug, in some cases. I definitely think so. I think that what you should try, instead of messing with the vault settings necessarily, try and drop it to easy difficulty and play on casual mode and see if you enjoy the game better. There's one thing to note though. Vault Hunts is hardest at level 51. It's the hardest part in the game, and I need to probably tone that down a little bit. The reason it's like that is because I want the player to feel like they run into this mega challenge and they overcome it, and then they have a better, easier ride from there on. But I can make that happen without it being so harsh. I think it's a bit too harsh at the moment.